Welcome to my next Stranger Things Season 2 episode review video. Before I get into that, though, pretty important, if you weren't caught up to the point where I am a rewatch here watching Stranger Things, or you're just not entirely sure, then you definitely need to take the initiative and pay attention to the episode's title, which of course I'll mention, as well as put in the description. If that happens to be the case, you find that you're not caught up, it would be my recommendation that you don't watch this detailed review any further to avoid any potential spoilers. And full disclosure, I've already watched every single episode of Stranger Things that's aired. It's one of my favorite TV shows of all time. I'm not exactly sure where it ranks. It's definitely in the top 20, but it's very possible that it's in the top 10. Doing this rewatch of the show and letting it resonate a little bit more will help me determine where precisely it ranks, as I don't remember everything about the first 3 seasons, but it's certainly an awesome show, and I like it a lot. Now, I'm obviously looking forward to the 5th and final season of Stranger Things. I'm hearing that's supposed to come out in November, although that has yet to be confirmed, and I'm guessing once it does come out halfway through the season, they'll take a break so people have to pay extra for Netflix, so that's what they'll probably do, and it'll go into 2026. But with all that said, this will be Stranger Things Season 2, Episode 8. The title of this episode is called The Mind Flayer, and this will be my review reaction recap after just finishing watching the episode. So Hopper is confronted by a juvenile Demogorgon. The two are separated by a glass that Sam Owens says will not be able to break, and then several more Demogorgons join, and the glass begins to crack, causing everyone in the room to flee. Owens puts Hawking's laboratory on lockdown and takes the stairs with Hopper, while the rest of the scientists take the elevator and are slaughtered by the Demogorgons, who use the elevator to break into the lab's upper floors. Mike insists that Will be sedated, as the Mind Flayer can figure out where they are by using him. Will violently protests this, but Joyce sedates him when he hesitates when acknowledging who she is. Hopper and Owens arrive just as the Demogorgons break in, and the group flees to the security room. The power goes out in the lab, sealing everyone inside. Susan returns home to find her daughter Max missing. She and her husband Neil ask Billy where she went, and Neil becomes violent. What an asshole, when he dismisses them and doesn't really think Max is his sister, despite Susan's protests. He orders Billy, this is Neil, to find Max and leaves. Steve accidentally reveals to Max and Lucas that Dustin kept D'Artagnan, leaving Lucas furious. As they argue over whether or not Lucas also broke the law of their group by telling Max the truth, Steve hears the screech of Demogorgons, and they all head towards the sound, identifying it as coming from Hawking's lab. Owens explains that someone needs to reboot the computer system to unlock the doors, and Bob Newby, the only one who knows basic, volunteers to go. Bob and Hopper take the ID and the radio off of a dead guard, and Hopper gives him his gun, ordering him to come back to them if anything goes wrong. Bob tells him to not wait for him if he gets the doors open. Nancy and Jonathan arrive at the lab to find the gate locked, and they meet up with Steve and the kids. Bob successfully reboots the system, allowing the group outside to get in. And then a Demogorgon starts descending from the stairs near where Bob is, but Bob, guided by Owens, lures it away by turning on a nearby sprinkler system and leaves without Hopper's gun. So he left the gun there. I don't know how good of a shot he would be, but it certainly is not good for Bob. And then, feeling responsible, Owen stays behind to guide everyone to safety, and the rest of the group hurries for the exit. Bob has a near miss with a Demogorgon and hides in a closet to escape it, but alerts it when he knocks a mop over. He makes it to the exit just in time to find the rest of the group and stops to smile at Joyce, and then the Demogorgon bursts through the door and attacks him, and Hopper, respecting his last wish, drags a horrified Joyce out of the building and escapes. Hopper tried to save him, but the bullets from the gun weren't doing any good, and then other Demogorgons showed up. So it was like 5 or 6 on 1 or 2 if you count Joyce, and it wasn't going to happen. They were going to die if they saved Bob, which they wouldn't have saved him anyway because they were outnumbered, even though the kids and everybody else was outside. But Hopper made the right decision, and then Bob's body is feasted on by several Demogorgons. Such a sad moment. Like, this didn't affect me when I first watched the show that much, but once, me rewatching it, I was affected to it. I wasn't brought to tears or anything, but I realized that Bob was an awesome character on Stranger Things. And then Hopper tries to call for backup before sitting with a miserable Joyce in silence. Mike notices one of the puzzle games Bob brought over and shows it to the kids, telling them that Bob was the founder of Hawkins Middle School AV Club, and that, like, Scott Clark got all of his knowledge from Bob. So Bob really gets pointed in a really good light in this episode, and they need to avenge his death. When an exasperated Dustin states that they cannot because of the army of Demogorgons, which he is dubbed as Demodogs. In the Mind Flayer has Mike realizes that they are all linked to him, and that defeating the monster will defeat the Demodogs. Dustin compares the Mind Flayer hive mind consciousness to Dungeons and Dragons creature known as the Mind Flayer. So I've been calling it the Shadow Monster, but it's really the Mind Flayer, if you want to call it that. A being from another dimension that enslaves species with its psychic powers because of its own perceived superiority. And then Joyce emerges from the bedroom and agrees that they have to kill it to save Will and avenge Bob's death. Mike realizes Will can tell them how to stop it, and that they can safely get answers if they obscure his location. The group clears out the buyer's shed and covers the walls. Nancy thanks Steve for protecting the kids, while Dustin apologizes to Lucas for keeping Dart, and Mike insists Max knowing the truth does not mean she is part of the group. They tie Will to a chair in the shed and shine bright lights in his face to obscure his vision, and Hopper wakes him up while Joyce, Jonathan, and Mike watch. Max asks what happened if the Mind Flayer finds out where they are, and Lucas says it will be Judgment Day. Will reacts violently when he wakes up and makes the lights flicker until Hopper restrains him into exhaustion. Now, somewhat more calm, Will listens as Joyce tells him the story of her hanging up a drawing he made on his 8th birthday at her workplace. Jonathan telling him about the day their father left when they built Castle Byers together in the rain, and Mike telling him about when they first met in kindergarten. Will still insists on being let go, but Hopper notices he is tapping Morse code into the chair with his finger. They continue to talk to Will about the stories and that are personal to them involving him, and the Morse code is translated to close gate. The house phone rings and Will realizes where they are. They sedate him again, and the group arms themselves as they hear Demodogs approaching, but suddenly hear the dogs being killed off. One is thrown through the window, and the front door opens by itself, revealing 11. 11 has returned from her journey to Chicago. She and Mike look at each other, both of them becoming emotional, and that's what ends this really awesome episode of Stranger Things. So I can't give this episode any more than a 10 or any less than a 10 because it was pretty phenomenal. And the character of the episode, while everybody does a really good job, Bob Newby is the character of the episode. This guy wasn't in very many episodes of Stranger Things, but he's now one of my favorite characters. And maybe he was before, but it's been a few years since I watched this season, like 4 years, I think. So Bob is awesome, and it was a good episode with 11 coming back, and the tension in that laboratory. So you've heard everything that I have to say. Now it's your turn. If you're a fan of Stranger Things and you want to help me out with the YouTube algorithm, please make sure that you Hulk smash the like button, share the video with a friend, put this video on any one of your social media platforms. Don't forget to sound off in the comment section about what your thoughts are on this episode of Stranger Things or anything else Stranger Things related. What would you score this episode? Who would be your character of the episode? And then last but certainly not least, don't forget to hit that sub button. You're watching the video anyway. Subscribe to the channel. Help me get over 100,000 subscribers. I know that's a lofty goal. Join the team, show your damn support, and be a part of something special. And you never know what you're going to see on JDev TV.